I'm going to draw your attention to page 7 of The Sun, Peter, because hate preacher Choudary has made a return, believe it or not, to the papers, because apparently he is suspected of inspiring the attack on 3 prison officers by Manchester arena terrorist Hashem Abedi. We talked about this story yesterday, this horrible, ghastly creature who's the brother of the scumbag that blew himself up in Manchester arena over 8 years ago, apparently decided it would be a great idea to melt some butter, throw it in the face of a female prison guard and stab 2 other prison guards who I think are still in a life-threatening situation but stable. But they're now thinking that Choudary, who was in the same prison, might have been the guy behind it all.
An exclusive by Mike Sullivan and Michael Hamilton of The Sun, who have glittering reputations for getting things right.
They do.
The police haven't commented yet, but I'm pretty happy to take what these 2 fine journalists say as being more than credible. Choudary has done nothing but spread hate virtually all of his adult life.
Individual, isn't he?
Yeah, he's an absolute garbage.
The only thing I'm pleased about this story is that it reminds us that he's still behind bars.
Yeah, I mean, he would slaughter you and I and everyone listening and watching the show in the blink of an eye. He absolutely detests us. He wants Islam to rule the world. He would happily run us all through with a very large sword and behead our children and all that kind of stuff. He's absolute vermin, as is Abedi. Both Abedis, actually. The one who detonated the bomb and the one who helped build it, his brother. I have a huge amount of respect, admiration and sympathy for prison staff because they deal with the same people as the police do. There's just a wall that separates their jobs, basically. And, of course, they have to deal with the real worst of the worst, and many of them are incarcerated in Frankland. There's things that need to happen here, and I'm going to get back on my blue-collar jobs here, right? OK? The political classes have shown their utter contempt for prison staff by butchering their wages, their pension entitlements, and meaning that a prison officer now who starts work at the age of 18, who will be poorly trained and not paid enough, will have to work till 65 to get their occupational pension. 47 years on the landings, when most politicians couldn't hack it for 47 seconds.
Exactly right. And they've also outsourced an awful lot of it, haven't they, to private companies like G4S and various other sort of private security companies. And I'm told they have even lower standards for hiring people and will often hire people who are foreign, who have come into this country as cheap labour, and they'll just give them, a jacket and say, like, you're now a prison officer.
Well, I worked for one of those aforementioned companies, and I ended up doing a 2-page exclusive in the Sunday Times because I went undercover. I worked for them once. I was so utterly appalled at what I saw that I went to a journo mate of mine and said, right, rig me up with a hidden camera and I'm going to expose this company. Bullying, pathetic non-training of certain staff and echoing just what you said, basically.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm getting used to being proved right a lot these days. You know, almost everything that I've been saying for the last 5 or 6 years on this very show, whether it was on mid-morning or whether it's now, it's depressing how right I've been and how everybody's now beginning to realise it.
And you're absolutely right. And there is some chinks of light here because people are beginning to come forward and tell the truth. The whole of the West Yorkshire police debacle, right? Exposed because a whistleblower came forward and essentially went to the Telegraph to start with. Right?
These are the West Yorkshire Police, of course, for those who don't remember it, who last week were revealed to be blocking deliberately the recruitment of white men to come into the police force.
And I saw a tiny clip of a story, but I'm hoping that the journo revealed this is going to work on it. Apparently, a brown-faced police officer who was given preferential treatment and rapid promotion got into a role that they weren't yet equipped for. They might have become a very competent police officer in the fullness of time, but they were rushed into a job that they were underqualified
rapid promotion
and inexperienced for, and that brown-faced person turned around and said, it did nobody any favours. Didn't do me any favours, didn't do any favours to the officers who knew that I wasn't properly qualified for the job, didn't do the public and victims of crime any favours. You see, all this nonsense, forcing square pegs into round holes, is just not doing
anybody any favours. But the interesting issue about this entire story involving Hashem Abedi, and we're going to have Robert Jenrick come in later on, who lifted the lid on this a couple of weeks ago by saying that there are Muslim gangs, Muslim Brotherhood gangs in particular, running the inside of prisons, right? And he said something's got to be done. A lot of people, Ian Aitchison amongst them, who I think is a great voice on this.
Wonderful.
We've spoken to him many times. He's saying, you know, there should not be the ability for these people to walk around in sort of, you know, cahoots with one another. You know, they should be in isolation. They should not be able to meet up with you know, their sort of, you know, fellow travellers. They should not be allowed to have, you know, access to a kitchen. I mean, it beggars belief you'd have to say this to them.
With their fellow murderous Islamist terrorists.
Exactly.
And they give them a kitchen and cooking utensils and oil. What utter lunacy.
It is incredible, isn't it?
And do you know what? His Majesty's Inspectorate of Prisons in 2022, when they did a report on exactly these separation units, they said the men appreciate them. The men, they're murdering terrorists. Don't call them men.
I don't care if they appreciate
it. Are.
Exactly right. I don't care if they appreciate it or not. And this is indeed the thing. And there's a call here from Ian Aitchison himself in the Times, former prison governor, who carried out a review of Islamist extremists in jails in 2016, says that this boy, this man, should now be put in total isolation, even if it turns him mad. He doesn't care. He said there should not be these areas where they're allowed to mix with each other. It's ridiculous.
And yesterday, families of the Manchester bombing victims, bless them, rest their souls, and bless those people who have got a lifetime of loss to deal with because of this revolting creature behaviour and his brother. They wrote to the Justice Secretary saying this is not what we expected him to be having after he'd been sentenced.
I know.
What an insult it is to all those beautiful lives that were lost and all those other lives that have been deeply affected forever.
Exactly right. Check this out, right? A prison service source said Article 3 and Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which protects against inhumane treatment and the right to respect for family and private life, home and correspondence, have prevented officials placing certain prisoners in close supervision centres or separation. I'm sorry. Let's just get rid of that human rights law, shall we?
Exactly. Let's just bin it off. Let's just bin it off. Let's think about those prison officers who are still in hospital. Let's think about those people who got blown to smithereens, those children that got blown to smithereens at the Ariana Grande concert. And let's think about people who have to live with a lifetime of loss. To all those clowns, to all those lawyers, to the political classes. Do you know what? If you don't listen to us, then there's going to be a price to be paid.
Yeah, absolutely right. Peter's on form this morning, says Jason in Worthing, and he's totally right about the destruction of the construction industry with the import of cheap labour. We now have no skilled trades on site. Blair encouraged our kids to go to university and load them with debt. Kids that studied useless degrees like media studies and sports science. Cheap labour is all they want. Forget training our own workforce. Absolutely right. Let's get a voice note from Nick.
Morning, Mike and Peter. Nick Moore from Loughborough. It's quite obvious, really, why this government is promoting this narrative of cultural change, because their only hope of remaining in power for more than one term is to stoke the division that makes the country more easy to govern. A divided country is far more easy to govern than a united country. Have a good day, both of you.
Nick, very well said. Thank you very much indeed. Well, we're here to try and unite things around what is the commonsensical view of the world rather than this government's view of the world.